Hey, YouTube people, Facebook people, people. How you doing? Look a little different than the last video I made. Oh, I didn't put that out. Go figure. Maybe someday. Garden's looking good. Might have seen some posts. We got a goat. And of course, you can't just have one goat. They're herd animals. Ooh, my hair's looking good. They're herd animals. They're social. So, we got more than one goat. And, that's kind of out of the blue, isn't it? Well, in some respects it is. In some respects it isn't. It's a big property, a lot of grass. And when I first got here, my neighbor across the street had goats. I'm like, that's a smart guy right there. And he's got a bunch of goats trimming his back fields and munching on leaves, browsing, opening up the woods and whatnot. So I'm like, that's pretty smart. So I had considered goats for a while, and then when I discovered that we were going to be farmers in April, I thought again about goats, and I started reading about it. And there's meat goats and there's dairy goats, and I've never eaten a goat. Not really have an urge to eat a goat. I'll eat a cow. I'll eat a chicken. Bunch of other stuff probably. I'm not like down for duck or even a goose. Turkey maybe, but not goats. And milking, when I was with my first wife, we had a couple of dairy cows, and that's a serious responsibility, because if you're late to milk the cow suffers badly, so you can't be late. We were always stuck there. And but it was great, that was cow's milk, and it's like 1.5 gallons a day off our Jersey cow, I think. And that was great. It never went to waste. We fed it to pigs. Pigs loved it. Got fat fast. We made butter, made cream. We didn't make it. It was given to us. But so then there's goats. They don't take as long to milk, and I don't even know, are they twice a day? I haven't looked into that, because I've been the milking thing. I remember a funny story. My wife was pregnant with our daughter Katie, and it was our third child. That we'd been through it, so we sat home for a while. We're farmers, can't just leave the farm. So we had chores, and we milked at 9 and 9 in the morning, 9 at night. Banker's hours for farmers or something. But Jeannie started to get closer and closer in contractions, and so I'm like, all right, I'll go milk. It's like 8:30 or something. It was before her time or what have you. We couldn't just leave, because we knew we were going to be there all night next day. And we were pretty sure she was going to have the baby. I mean, it was the third baby. She knew it was up. And so I went out there, and I milked as fast as I've ever milked. It was pretty fast. And I'm in there like, hey, come on, girl. I think it was Chestnut, pretty sure, which was a calf that we had raised to that point. And so we had her a couple of years, so she was a good cow. Anyway, I'm milking as fast as I can, and I'm keeping the calm, in the barn with the cow, talk to the cow, pet, put your head up against its like ribs as you milking. And I could hear in the house, it's summertime, it's July. Oh! I'm like, oh, excuse me. So I milked even faster. Stripped her out, put her outside, and we beat feet to the hospital. And I think she had the baby in 20 minutes after we got there. Anyway, that was a tangent, sorry. You know what? Farming, gardening, chicken raising. Are we farmers? I don't know. Yeah, I guess we are. If you're farming something, you're farming. So it's good for kids. It's really good for kids. My kids enjoyed it. My niece has a bull calf that I think she was going to get for beef, but now it's part of the family. They got horses.
I see, Mamo.
And it's good for her kids. And she said that she was influenced by when she come over to my house when she was little, seeing the cows. And so cool, you know. She's also done some broilers. So it's good for the kids, you know. There's some sad messages about life and death, some miraculous stories about birth. It's good. And then you learn where your food comes from and what's what and how stuff works. And it seems like kids that are around that kind of stuff just have a different sense, you know. Not any more common sense perhaps, but just some, like, maybe some natural sense, you know, from the earth. So anyway, why goats? Why goats? Like I said earlier, we thought about, I thought about getting goats for the front lawn when I saw what my neighbor was doing. So there's a barn out front, you know, so that's still a possibility. But I got these dogs, and I'm doing my best. It's a slow transfer over because of the dogs, because they're in a pack. They're not just a single dog. They have an instinct to protect, or I don't know. I've seen Lady go after some rodents, but these aren't rodents, so she was different. We had her in the shed, and we had one of the goats and let them meet, but she's so frantic and nervous. Can't have I get them together. So we have to be like on DEFCON 4. We have an idea how we want to do the goats. I got a lot of browse, I've got a lot of grass, and so that's one thing. I've got a lot of browse in the woods. I got muscadines that are overgrown that I'd like to trim the bottom out of. And goats love to browse and eat the green leaves, and so it'll be good. But I got to get some mobile fence, and I got to be here for a while and get these dogs used to them and whatnot. I mean, the dogs and chickens, that's one thing, and that's gotten better. I mean, we know how to protect against it. We haven't had a problem in a while. But now we get goats. I mean, and the goats are in the pen over there. The turnaround. That turnaround was a sign that we found. I don't want to throw away any of this old buck signs. This was a big farm at one point for muscadines. And there's a bunch of old signs, like the sign underneath with the backwards end. I don't know if he did that on purpose or whatever, but I like it underneath over the brooder on the coop. So why goats? Well, first reason is I had thought about it once before and had favorable, did some reading about it. They're a fairly easy species to work with and to raise. Saw my neighbor doing it across the street, so I'm like, yeah, convinced. Same kind of land as here. So there's that. Then there's the land that I want to open up. I've got a couple acres of just browse that they can clean up. Hadn't thought about it. Now we're in farm mode. John and I have talked extensively about what we want to do for more meat. And doing the studying we've done about beef, pigs, and goats. Goats are always being looked at. And of course chickens. Chickens are our entry level. But like, I don't know. I feel like I got fuel just growing and going to waste. So I wanted to get something. If the infrastructure for a cow is much more, even though I have some fencing, it's not the kind of fencing I think a cow needs. These goats, it'll work for them for sure. And I have the barn. I have a pretty protected area. We've got some other fencing that we're going to get into, some electric fencing, shock fencing, and we're just moving up. So we got goats. Why do we have goats? The planet's kind of aligned a little bit as far as how this all of a sudden just happened. John was online, saw a guy in the neighborhood or in the area that had goats for a good price, and when we researched further, it's the guy across the street with all the goats. So they had just had babies, you know, it's that time for his herd. And so we got the one male, and then doing a little research and talking to him, you should have more than one. And that same day they were picking that one goat up, another one had twins. Same dad. And they're pygmy cross. You could milk them. They're dual purpose animal. They're cute. They're small. They're very small, like puppy size. They're amazing. So when he brought out the two little ones, and we're like, yeah, how long you gotta, keep them on mom? Like 48 hours. I'm like, what? So he's been doing it for a while. He knows what's up, and you take calves off their moms too. I mean, it's the cold side of farming, you can't but it works, They've bonded to us. We're bottle feeding them. Going to be bottle feeding them for a couple months. Slow going because they just came off their mom yesterday. They're just little babies, literally. They still have umbilical cord. Like I said, the goats are good for the kids. There's a little guy that comes around. John's son is just over a year old, and it's fun as heck watching him discover stuff. And when he's in with the animals, he likes some animals better than others, and man, he really likes these little black goats because they're so small, and they're scared of him, and he's scared of them, and they come together, and it's pretty cute. So why goats? The planets align. I think we got such a good deal on them that we can get out of them if we got to. We built this chicken coop. That pen isn't for them, or wasn't for them, and isn't for them. They're going to go out front. But while they're so little, they're going to go into that pen with the chickens. Unless all of a sudden I find out there's some super risky thing. From everything I've seen, it looks like it's going to be all right. They all get along well enough. But I'm new at it, so if you see something that I'm doing wrong, I welcome the constructive criticism. Last night when I came out to check on the goats, I was hungry, and I went out to the garden and picked a tomato. And to make it sound like I had a bunch to pick from, there was one that was ripe that I knew about. I had my eye on it for a couple days. But I picked that and went inside, made myself a tomato sandwich, made 2 of them, and it was good. And the goats would chill. I thought, like, oh my gosh, I gotta feed them. I went out there with a bottle ready to go, and they were snoozing. They didn't care about me. And so I went out early this morning, and they're like, this ain't my mom, but they'll sit in your arm when you hold them, and I think they like that because they get really peaceful. And then I was able to slip the bottle in and get a couple ounces into both of them, and so they're gonna be fine. We try to feed them a couple ounces to like a half a cup 4 times a day, I think it is. Half a cup 4 times a day, quarter cup. They're small. They'll take what they take whenever as soon as they say something, we try to feed them. There's a couple bottles kicking around in the fridge, the microwave on duty. So why goats? It just all fell together, man. Might the goats get phased out for cows down the road? It's possible. If we get a good setup and we can get little, I don't know if you'd call them paddocks, but like those fences, you buy them, they're like 164 feet, or it's an odd length. I don't know why it would be an odd length, but it comes out to like 40 by 40 by 40. And they're nets, and they stake in the ground. They're mobile, movable. Excuse me. So you get those. Like Premier One is a company that does them probably the best, but they're fairly expensive. And then you get them because they're mobile and they're away from power sources. Usually, you get a solar charger, and those are a couple $100 or more. I hear a little thunder. That's the cool thing about this hill. Being on top of the hill, you hear thunder. You might not even get a storm. They come around you. They come up from Gulf of Mexico over by Texas, Louisiana. It comes up diagonally, cuts across the street, cuts across the state diagonally, and it's pretty cool until it comes and hits this hill, man. There's the winds up here when it comes on.
gets serious, but I love it. I love it. Hopefully survive it. Why goats? I'll admit it was a little quicker than what I wanted to do, but John's in on this and he wanted to jump in on it, so that's his baby. And he had a plan. And, I mean, there is an overall plan, and it's to get more meat on the property, pigs and beef, like pork, beef, chicken would be nice. Not eating goat. Still not going to eat goat. I've eaten lamb, love lamb, but we raised sheep when I was with my first wife, and she said never do that again. They're kind of dumb and panicky. And, I mean, admittedly, we didn't get them as lambs, so they were always skittish. They were hard to control. Like if they got out, they just didn't herd back well. I gotta give credit to Jeannie. She was really good with that stuff. She was taking care of 3 kids and doing that stuff, and she was doing a good job with the stuff. Yeah, just see her as proud of you. She's a good girl. What else? Why goats? That was the premise of this video. Well, I'm gonna end it here. If I think of something else, I'll come on.